Hi everyone, Megan here from Beguiled by Books, and today I want to share my favorite nonfiction reads to read at work or with your coworkers. Let's get into it. Nonfiction is a broad topic, and it can be very helpful to learn new information and nearly anything you want through reading, especially reading nonfiction. If you have a workplace book club or just want to read something business related with colleagues, here are my top 5 books to read for that type of audience. The first one is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. Dare to Lead, I think, is the pinnacle of Brené Brown's writing. I've said this before. She takes her research and shares it through the lens of being your most authentic self at work. Even though it's written for employees and businesses, it's really applicable wherever you are in life. And I can't stress how wonderful this book is and how helpful it's been for me and those I've seen read it. So a great book to read with your coworkers, with your colleagues in your workplace book club, whatever. Absolutely recommend it. The next book is The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. So Daniel Coyle begins by talking about culture and what it meant in the early days of human history, and then explains how our brains are still wired to respond to culture in the same ways with emotional, physical, and psychological safety. Even though we're now at work instead of our hunter-gatherer societies, the type of culture our brains are wired to still applies with that emotional, physical, and psychological safety. There are a ton of helpful tips for leaders in these pages, and it's worth noting that the subtext of the Culture Code shows that anyone and everyone can and should be a leader. Leadership is not about authority or titles or deference to another person. It's about honesty, vulnerability, and consistency. I've read a fair few books on companies, teams, and organizational culture, and I really, really liked The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. I really liked the punchiness of the book. It was not overly wordy. It really got to the point and did it in the space that it needed to be done. Too many books on team culture highlight tired stories of things that worked in the 1950s, or they focus on one particular success story that's highly unlikely to be repeatable, especially in our ever-changing environment, especially in the tech and software industries. So I really liked how Coyle tied certain themes together in ways that are flexible and repeatable for lots of people in lots of different industries. My next book that I think you should read in your workplace book club or with your coworkers is Invisible Women: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. This tells the story of how women have been underrepresented or outright missing from studies and data as far back as data collection goes. The author's premise is that all humanity suffers from yet an inherent and unintentional bias against women due to the lack of this data. There were some really eye-opening pieces in this book. The data and studies are very well documented throughout, which helps prove the author's hypotheses and points. Using that data, the author details explanations on why the lack of data on women affects decision-making for current and future generations on both micro and macro levels. The next book you should read at work or with your coworkers is Deep Work by Cal Newport. At the beginning of the book, Cal Newport discusses the science behind shallow work, which is repeated automatable tasks, and deep work. Deep work is the extended stretches of time where you're uninterrupted and focused on a single task. If you need to be creative or work on something truly big, you need deep work and you need time in your schedule to allow that. This book was really great to better understand how you might work with people in your company who need that creative time, whether that's developers who are building a thing or whether that's people who are creating something to sell a thing. Whatever that is, it's really helpful to better understand what that creative time looks like and how that can show up in your workplace. Last but not least, the 5th book that I recommend for your workplace book club or to read with your coworkers is Never Split the Difference: Negotiating as If Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss. This is a great book written by a former hostage negotiator. I knew I picked up the right book when I picked it up, and the author focused on the psyche and the reality of the person with whom you're negotiating rather than their demands. So I just thought it was a really interesting take on negotiation, and I really liked what Voss says and how he turns negotiation on its head and calls it tactical empathy. Throughout the book, the author takes his real life experiences in kidnapping and hostage negotiations and translates them in how you can succeed in getting what you need, whether you're negotiating salary or reducing your cable bill, or you're trying to get your kids to bed or to eat their vegetables. I have nothing but great things to say about this book. I think it's a great new book for a new era of business books. So thanks for sticking with me and hearing about my favorite nonfiction books you could read at work and with your coworkers. If you have recommendations, I'd love to hear them. So drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.